A day after announcing import duties on U.S. goods, Canada is making a big adjustment. Ottawa now removing counter-tariffs on seafood and fish products. All right, Heidi Petracek has been following this story for us. She joins us now from Eastern Passage, Nova Scotia. Heidi, we appreciate this. So, didn't take long, did it? Why did they make this change?
Well, really, to sum it up, industry pressure. I mean, ever since the counter-tariff measures were announced and that long list came out, once those in the Canadian seafood industry learned that American seafood products, including lobster, which is fished out of this harbor where I am now, were on that list, they started working the phones. They started having meetings with federal government officials and emphasizing that the seafood industry, particularly between Atlantic Canada and places like Maine and Massachusetts, is so tightly linked together between harvesting and processing and selling that in order to impose 25% tariffs on American seafood coming over would be a hardship for processors in this part of the region, and kind of created a lot of tension and worry as to what could then happen if the Trump administration then in turn decided to target Canadian seafood.
Interesting, right? Because it just shows how integrated and really dependent both sides of the border are on the industry. But of course, they're not the only ones. So many other industries are saying, okay, what about us? I want to get into that in a second in terms of if there's any move, but why was Ottawa targeting seafood in the first place? It seems a little hasty, doesn't it?
That is actually a very good question, and I think a lot of people would like an answer to that, because up until this point, aside from a brief period when Donald Trump's second presidential term began, seafood has been exempt under the Canada-US-Mexico trade agreement. So they really haven't had to deal with North American tariffs either from America or from Canada in terms of counter tariffs. So this was a surprise to a lot of industry representatives who said, hey, we weren't consulted on this, and also a surprise to a trade expert I talked to who said it kind of didn't make sense in that way. It may have been a kind of political play to put pressure on certain states that are seen as key in the American midterm elections. Maine is one of those states. It has a long-time Republican senator being challenged by a Democrat, and they're polling very close. And you know, Donald Trump really needs states like that to stay Republican in order to maintain the control that the Republican Party has. So that may have been a political play, but industry pressure may have just been too much to bear, and so then Ottawa called this part of its counter tariffs off.
All right, you use the word pressure. I'm sure a lot of other industries in this country are pressuring Ottawa to say, okay, maybe seafood got it. Is there a chance for us? What's happening there? Any chance?
I'm really not sure about that. Actually, Ottawa added new tariff lines to its list of countermeasures after it removed seafood. So things like copper wire, things like wood charcoal. So I'm not sure if there's going to be relief for other industries, because the whole key to it is there a Canadian equivalent that the market can use instead of relying on American product coming in? And I think what was missed by the federal government was that key piece that American lobster in particular is needed in Atlantic Canada in order to continue processing because of the break in fishing seasons here. So that's what keeps the industry going all year round. So not a lot of industries are perhaps like that, and perhaps don't have such a sole supplier in that sense as the lobster industry does, although forestry is still targeted, and that's a big industry in Maine too.
That's just it. It just shows how complicated and regionally sensitive it is. Obviously a very sensitive time. Heidi, we appreciate this. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That is Heidi Petracek joining us from Eastern Passage, Nova Scotia. Thank you again.